Hi everyone, Dr. Suneel Dhand. Welcome to another video. I believe that huge swathes of our medical system are a complete and utter scam. And I do not use that word lightly. And I want to share with you a very recent story, only from last week, that highlights this point. But before we get started, I want to share with you another secret. I've been in the United States for over 10 years. Thankfully, I have good health insurance, but I do everything possible to avoid any interaction whatsoever with the medical system. I'm not registered with a primary care doctor, and I have no interest in seeing dentists, optometrists, or other allied professionals based on my own experiences, which I will share with you shortly. Now, a lot of people might say to me, Dr. Dhand, you don't think much of the medical system. You think huge swathes of it are corrupted. You think that huge swathes of it are a complete scam. What are you doing working in the medical system? Well, that's a fair enough question, and I would answer it like this. Outside of my practice of lifestyle and health coaching, which is extremely rewarding, I do acute hospital work. And despite everything bad I say about the medical system, because there are so many negative aspects of the medical system in the United States, one thing that the United States is very good at, actually phenomenal at, is acute care. I also work in emergency rooms, but whether people come into hospital with a heart attack, a stroke, sepsis, a condition needing ICU admission, one thing that we do really well is we give attention to emergencies at a very high level, very fast. And I often say that I would rather be a homeless person in the United States with an acute medical emergency than a rich person in almost any other country. Obviously, it does come at a cost, but I'm telling you, as somebody who has worked and lived in different countries, the speed of getting care when you have an emergency in the United States is at an extremely high level. And as for any relative of mine, if they ever needed acute care for a serious emergency, I would want them in the United States. I wouldn't want them anywhere else. I wouldn't want them in England or any other Western country. And I really do mean that. Before we get started on everything I'm about to say, I'm very proud to practice acute care hospital medicine, which I think we do really well. However, chronic problems are a whole different matter. Dealing with routine issues, outpatient appointments, etc., we are terrible at that. Predominantly because we have a sick care system that doesn't focus on real health and wellness. As for my own personal health, I've never registered with a primary care doctor in the United States. Touch wood, or knock on wood, as you say in the United States, I have good metabolic health and I do my own lab work and I monitor myself. Obviously, I have that knowledge and I'm medically trained, but I appreciate the fact that most people are not in that position. They need doctors for whatever reason. So I want to share with you then my own story, having stayed away from any outpatient medicine all this time, even the most minor thing. Let me share with you what happened to me then last week. I haven't visited an optometrist in the United States my whole time here, over 10 years. I have a couple of facilities that I go to in the United Kingdom that I trust. I think my last eye test was a couple of years ago or so. But I do occasionally wear glasses. I've never worn glasses in any of these videos. I think they're rather trendy glasses, even if I do say so myself. Maybe I'll surprise you all sometime with my glasses. But anyway, a few weeks ago my glasses broke and I thought, oh no, I'm going to need a new pair of glasses, which means that I will need to go to an optometrist in the United States. But what could possibly go wrong? So I went to a local optometrist. I'm in the northeast of the United States, and the optometrist was perfectly pleasant, nice young lady. And I told her when I went in, my glasses have broken, I need another prescription, and I simply want to purchase some new glasses. So of course she did an eye exam on me, tested my vision, and then she had to look at the back of my eye. And she said, your optic disc, it's a little bit of an unusual shape. I may have to refer you to a specialist. And at first I didn't tell her that I was a doctor And I questioned her a bit more, and I said, well, what conditions could it be associated with? And she said, well, it could be associated with glaucoma, raised eye pressure, etc. And then I did tell her that I was in medicine and I had this knowledge, obviously, and I asked her what my eye pressure was. And she looked at her chart, her test that she had just done, and said, oh, your eye pressure is absolutely perfect. And then I said, well, there's something else I should tell you. I've actually been told this since I was 18 years old. It probably runs in my family. Optic discs, slightly unusual shape, and I've never had any other eye problems. So I really don't think any specialty referral is necessary. Probably a good thing, my optic disc. Maybe it means that Dr. Dhand is more awake, my shape of optic disc. But anyway, she said she would think about it and might still refer me. And I thought, okay, well, I need to get on with this appointment. Let's get the prescriptions and let me get my glasses. So I did get my glasses. And I went home. And about 3 hours later, I get a phone call. And it's a number I don't recognize. It's a local number I didn't pick up at first. Then a few minutes later, it called me again. So I picked it up. And it is some big eye center that does surgeries and imaging. And they said, you've been referred by your optometrist for an urgent scan of your eyes to check out your optic discs. And at first, because I'm not that familiar with these tests, I didn't even know what tests they were talking about. And I went back and forth with them and said, look, really not necessary. I've had this issue since I was very young and my eye pressures are otherwise fine. Plus, I'm a doctor. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye. And then afterwards, I did do some research into the types of scans that she could have possibly been recommending. And these were very sophisticated scans. They were obviously very expensive. Maybe my insurance would have covered some of these scans, but some of the cost, I'm sure, I would have had to bear for this totally unnecessary test. I told the eye doctor that day that this was not necessary. I was medically trained. My eye pressures were otherwise fine. And this has been something which has been told to me in the UK since I was 18 years old. And it's never been suggested to me that I need an additional scan. And this is how the US medical system works. And I really reflected on that experience. This was the one time I gave them a chance for a relatively minor thing. It's a minor issue, of course. I simply needed an eye prescription. And what did they do? They tried to shuttle me through the system. They tried to put Dr. Dhand into the system for expensive tests, which were totally not necessary. And imagine me as somebody who's medically trained, this happening to me for a minor condition. How many people out there with more serious conditions are being put through the system and having expensive, unnecessary tests? And this is backed up by data and numbers. An article from a few years ago estimated that in the US, we spend $200 billion annually on unnecessary tests. That's more than the GDP of entire countries. It may even be more than that, if you ask me, maybe close to $1 trillion. Absolutely unbelievable. And don't get me started on my interactions with other healthcare professionals in the United States. That day with the optometrist, it was very respectful. I let her do her job. But I have had back and forths with other professionals, namely dentists. Now, I'm sure there are some very good dentists out there, probably old school dentists. But when I first came to the United States, I thought I would give a few dentists a try, and I totally gave up after a few visits. My experiences were very negative. I thought these dentists were deliberately overdiagnosing conditions. They were putting forth treatment plans which were blatantly designed to get money. They were very different from the treatment plans I had encountered in the UK. And I remember one occasion in particular when this was one of my first visits to a dentist. And I sat there with the assistant and she did a whole load of x-rays on me. And then she said, well, now it's time for your oral cancer screening. And I thought, hold on a minute, oral cancer screening? I've never heard of this before. Is this necessary? Can you call the dentist in? So the dentist came in and I started throwing questions at the dentist. I wasn't as diplomatic as I was with that optometrist. I said, look, this test on me, What is the incidence and prevalence of oral cancer, especially in my demographic, a young person who doesn't smoke? What's the false positive rate? Will a Pandora's box be opened if you get an indeterminate result? I want to know that before I consent to this test. In the end, I didn't consent. The dentist didn't have a clue how to answer my questions. They were actually in a strop with me for the rest of the appointment. They wouldn't talk to me properly. I don't care. But there was no way I was going to consent to that. So that is one reason, among others, I'm completely done with dentists in the United States. I actually, again, have a couple of facilities that I go to in the United Kingdom, and I've been to a few other dentists overseas, but I refuse to go to any dentist in the United States. So for all you people listening out there, especially those who are not medically trained and can't take healthcare decisions into your own hands as much as I can, how can I help you? What advice can I give you to avoid these situations for unnecessary expensive over-testing? Well, the first thing I would say is, when you interact with a healthcare professional, whether it's a doctor, a dentist, an optometrist, whatever, if you go to them for a problem and then they try to divert you to something else, that should raise a red flag. Unless the issue is something urgent, why are they trying to divert you for tests which have nothing to do with what you came in with? That would be my first piece of advice. The second thing I would like you to do is, if you suspect a referral is unnecessary, ask the clinician whether you can choose who you get referred to and watch their reaction. Do they become all defensive and coy? Why would they do that if you merely have a suggestion of who you want to get referred to? And that should raise red flags. Maybe there are some deals in the background as to who they refer to. Very sad indeed. My next piece of advice would be this. Use Google. Go online, do your own research. I actually think Google is one of the best things to happen to patients in many, many years. A lot of doctors make fun of Dr. Google, but I think it's one of the best things. Imagine having none of the information which is available today. Only a couple of decades ago, that wasn't the case. It's your body. Nobody knows your body better than you, and that's why you should stay informed and do your own research. Finally, never be afraid of a second opinion. No clinician who is worth their salt minds if you get a second opinion. The more brains, the better. So go to a trusted source and get a second opinion. Those would be my pieces of advice to you to avoid unnecessary testing, which is at pandemic levels in the United States. Talk about a crisis. But look at my experience. The one time I thought I would give the system a chance, they totally tried to screw me over, do an unnecessary test, which I told them was not necessary. So, needless to say, it will be a long time before I plan on going to an optometrist again in the United States. And again, if something like that happens to me as a doctor, imagine how many millions and millions of people out there are being shuttled through the system, having unnecessary tests. Scam may seem like a strong word to some, but I don't think it's a strong word. Scam, scam artist, use whatever word you want. Is it the fault of the optometrist that day? I don't really blame her. I think she works in a system which is completely corrupt. Who knows what backroom deals had happened to get that optometrist to automatically follow protocol and write a referral for a test like that. And as I said, when I did research on what these tests involved, they were highly sophisticated and very expensive. So everyone out there, please keep your eyes open. I will continue to do everything possible, everything humanly possible in my power to stay away from routine medical interactions in the United States. I have no interest whatsoever. And it's a shame that I need to say that, because I think there are some good doctors and other medical professionals out there who want to do the right thing but are trapped in a terrible, terrible system. And this is more than simply just practicing in an environment of litigation and wanting to do everything possible to rule out any rare causes. There is more at play here. It's totally money driven. Of course, we know the rule, follow the money. That's why most bad things happen in life. But not that time with me. I, as a doctor, saved myself from going through the system and getting scammed. Thanks everyone for listening, Dr. Suneel Dhand. Do check out my online school and uncensored platform. Those links are down below. Have a great weekend, everyone. Let me know what you think about that video, and we will talk again very soon.